We're with Myron Ebell, Director of the Center for Energy and the Environment at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Myron, can you maybe describe for me what your role was in the Trump administration or the incoming Trump administration's transition efforts?
Chris, I was asked to lead the EPA team in early September, and I assembled a team. We worked through until Inauguration Day. I was not involved in personnel decisions. I gave some suggestions, but by and large, our team was responsible for coming up with an action plan to implement the president's campaign promises on environment, climate, and energy. And there were about 42 of those promises. 15 or 16 applied specifically to EPA, and we wrote a plan advising the new administration how to do that.
Okay, now big picture question here. In your view, should EPA be bigger or smaller than it is today, and why?
I think the EPA should be a lot smaller than it is today. In large part, the mission set out in the 1970s to clean up our environment nationally has been accomplished. And over time, each state has developed its own environmental protection agencies. There weren't very few of those back in the 1970s. Much of the work of the EPA over time on many of the major statutes has been devolved to the state agencies. And I think a lot of the EPA is really surplus now. Most of the work is being done by the states, so we don't need as many people here in Washington, D.C.
Okay, and on the issue of what the states should be doing, or what's going on the state level, what's the federal government's role in pollution issues that cross state lines? Water dumped in rivers in one state that flow into another state, airborne pollution that floats to the next state over. What's the federal government's role in those?
The federal government needs to regulate things that cross state lines. That's clearly within the federal government's authority, and that's a clear responsibility. And so if one state is dumping pollution which affects another state, the federal government needs to be controlling that and regulating it.
Okay. Now, you urged the president to pull out of the Paris Climate Treaty, which he has done. Explain for us why you want that, why you wanted that to happen.
The Paris Climate Treaty is part of the entire climate agenda of the Obama administration. President Trump, during the campaign, promised to undo that agenda. Now, if you keep Paris but undo the domestic regulatory actions, I think first there's legal liability. We have already seen emails from Attorney General Eric Schneiderman of New York State that one of the grounds for their lawsuit to protect the so-called Clean Power Plan from being undone is to say it's part of our Paris commitment, and therefore the government can't undo it. We made an international commitment. The second is that the Paris, signing on to Paris, that is joining it in the way President Obama did, is unconstitutional. It's a treaty. Every other country in the world treated it as a treaty. Treaties need to be sent to the Senate for ratification. Now, the Senate, of course, would defeat the Paris Climate Treaty, which is why President Obama didn't do it. So I think what President Trump should now do, that he said that we're going to withdraw, he should say, I'm going to send it to the Senate for its advice and consent, and then we would actually be doing it in the constitutional way, and we would get a clear, definitive answer about whether the American people want to be in Paris or want to be out of it.
And, I mean, don't most polls show that most Americans do want to be in Paris?
I'm a little leery of polls. I like election results much more than polls. I think one of the things that never happens in polls is that people aren't given the full picture. Some polls have been done on certain climate policies where the costs are mentioned. So how much are you willing to pay as a person or a family each year to achieve this policy? Climate policies rank pretty close to the bottom. People are willing to spend $1 a week or $175 a year for their family. That's about it. After that, you find rapidly decreasing support for these things. So I think Paris sounds good if it has no costs. If you bring in the costs, then I think the support for it goes down very rapidly.